I'm Jamie.
We are
Shade Tree Chefs. Excellent. Today we're going to be talking about a cool build that you built, a cool smoker that you built.
An ugly barrel smoker.
Yeah, ugly barrel smoker, ugly drum smoker. So you procured a 55-gallon drum
Yes.
from unknown sources, which was excellent. And you text me one day, you said, I got a drum, and we'll talk about that today, and go.
Yeah, so it was one of those things. Someone I knew had a 55-gallon drum or barrel, and they were like, getting rid of it. And at first I was like, no, I don't think I want it. It had the removable top, because everything I thought about building like a barrel smoker would have it sideways, put another box on it, cut it open, have racks in it, more of an offset. And then I'm sitting there and I'm like, wait, no, I will take it, because I have seen those upright style ones.
Yeah.
So I mentioned it to you, and then you actually text me a build on it through some website that I don't recall. I mean, I
just searched UDS or Ugly Drum Smoker online, and I sent the first website to you, and I don't know.
No, it was a good baseline, really, and I looked at it. I referenced it a few times during the build, because I've never built one.
Right. And yeah, you never built one, and the drums themselves, like you can buy one prefab, pre-made from various websites, and they start off at like what, $600?
Yeah, 600 probably be low end.
Yeah.
And you look at some of them, there's not much to them.
No, right. Now, you put a ton of work into this one, which maybe that's where the $600 would have been worth it, but you ended up going with it was like an oil barrel, right? But it didn't actually have the oil or
right.
grease
It was
barrel.
Yeah. It there was no there was a liner, a removable liner that was in it, and from everything I could tell, there was no coating on the inside. I say that, but actually after the burning it, I do think there was some sort of anti-rust coating on it, but not like a thick one with dealing with chemicals or whatnot.
Yeah. And so how did you still decided to go with it, even though there was the potential for chemicals? And I think normally a lot of people say, if at all possible, get a food grade barrel, but you had a petroleum barrel.
Right. Well, here's the thing, and I was looking, and some groups on Facebook or social media that just deal with this. So, it was scrolling a lot through those to kind of get a baseline for it, and dealing with that. Hey, there's something on the inside. What can you do? Can you use that? And one guy, and it made a lot of sense. He goes, listen, you do your initial burn, your burnout. Right, so you're going to burn it a lot. Make sure you burn it way hotter than when you plan on cooking on it for.
Sure.
Right, so let's just say I get that barrel to 650 degrees on the inside, and the barrel itself, most I plan on cooking is 300 degrees. Right, so at that 600 degree mark, I've burnt everything that can burn off at 600 or 650 degrees is burnt off.
Yeah.
Right, which is double the temperature that I plan on smoking with for it. So if I'm going to have 300 degrees, I've burnt everything off already.
Yeah.
And he actually even mentioned, well, what do you think about what you go and buy in the store? Same thing, the smokers and grills that you can commercially buy.
Yeah, and they come with a little bit of oil residue on them just to keep it from rusting from the factory
right
to your house and sitting on the shelves for months or even years at a time.
So yeah, it made a lot of sense to me, right? Because if there's something on it that can burn off at 700 degrees, well, I suppose if I decide to make pizzas in it and I got it up to 800 degrees, then I have something to worry about.
Yeah. So what was your plan to get it burned that hot?
All right. Well, backtrack a little bit. So this thing came painted, right? So there was paint on it. So first thing I seen was get one of those weed burners, attachment for a propane tank.
Big 20-pound propane
Big 20-pound tank. So got one of those. I'm sitting there. I'm outside. I'm just scorching that outside, and it was not going as planned, and it stunk. And I'm like, well, I don't live out in the country. I have neighbors. It's like I don't need the fire department showing up because everyone smells like some chemicals burning.
Yeah.
So I'm like, all right, well, we're going to resort to other means. We're going to use chemicals to get this paint off. So at first I'm like, paint thinner, right? That should work.
Sure.
Try it. No, it's not. It's not doing anything. So I'm like, all right, this is really before I got into looking at some of these different websites and the Facebook groups, which a lot just say you just burn it really hot and it'll burn that paint off. I didn't want to just do that because, like I said, I didn't want to have the fire department over and getting fined for burning that stuff.
Right.
So someone said brake fluid. I'm like, well, that makes sense. Brake fluid messes paint up. So I had some brake fluid, so I get a paintbrush and I'm just painting it on, just let it sit.
Okay.
That did not work.
No. So
I
you're
left it
3
overnight.
tries in now. You're trying every
Right.
option.
So then I'm like, all right, this didn't work. So then I just go to the hardware store, and I don't even recall what it was called, but it's like it comes more as a gel, and it takes off lacquer and paint. So I brush that stuff on,
Yeah.
and then it started bubbling up, and I just sat there with a razor blade and gloves, because you don't want to get that stuff on your hand, just scraping it off,
Yeah.
and then just reapply. And it worked. I mean, it took some labor to do it, but
Oh yeah, that sounds very labor intensive.
it really wasn't that bad. I mean, if going in hindsight, knowing that works, I'd start off with that right off the bat. Because other issue I had is that's this couple of spots that I was trying to burn it actually kind of more caked it on. It's like it burnt it into the metal.
Sure.
So then I had some dark spots that you could tell was part of whatever coating or paint, was just stuck on there.
Yeah.
The other thought too was just use, like, I have a grinder, a electric grinder, and you can buy the little cups and it has just metal in it, like a bristle. It's
Okay.
almost like a metal brush. So I even sat there and said, well, I'll just use that instead of chemicals.
Just grind it off. Yeah.
And I start using it, and it's like, this is really loud.
Yeah.
I don't want to be that guy in my neighborhood
All day long.
all day long, because
Yeah.
I mean it's an empty barrel, so it just resonates, inside that barrel, that noise, and
you
it
probably didn't-
amplifies it.
I was gonna say you probably didn't have like earplugs or any hearing protection on either, so I'm sure that was very
Well,
loud.
I mean, I didn't try very long. I was in the garage, I'm doing it, and it's starting to work, and I'm just like, I'm not going to be that guy. This is because this is going to take me a couple of hours. Not only that, I mean, it's the tool itself is a little heavier. It vibrates quite a bit. It's like this is going to be probably worse work than what I ended up doing. I mean, having taken a razor blade and just kind of scraping paint that at this point is loose.
Sure.
Not all that bad.
Okay. So your hands are cramping up. You're sad. You're
Sad. I cried a little
You
bit.
cried a little bit. You're
A little bit, maybe.
hours upon hours into trying to get this paint off. And so what finally worked?
Well, I wouldn't put it that bad, as you stated it. So yeah, it was that. Like I said, I don't know if it was acetone or what it was. I still have some, but it was reapplying it, and then I also noticed like I'd take my razor blade, and kind of score into that paint,
Sure.
and then reapply, and it would start bubbling. So I mean, it was a process, and you'd get what you can, then you go back, and then put more on.
Sure.
And then that got off pretty much all of it. I mean, there was little bits just from human error at that point. So then really it was move on from that point to do your initial burn. But I guess we're getting a little ahead of myself here. Like, how did I decide to build this? Right. So I looked at these websites. And one says, the one that you linked me, and it was like, hey, just drill 4 holes, get a shutoff valve, a couple pipe nipples, and then some caps for, I'm guessing, loosen them up, take them off for that airflow.
Yeah.
Well, of course, then you see fancy ones, right, that have these intakes that go vertical. And I'll link pictures and stuff, so you'll be able to see what it ended up turning out to be. But even in the lid, it was like, hey, just drill 8 holes. 8 half-inch holes, I think, and and I didn't really like that idea because to me, I didn't have much temp control at that point. So I'm sitting there at this, free builds, and then you start spending money on it. So I did go out and I just got through Amazon. I don't recall the name brand, but it was a bolt-on exhaust.
Oh, like a prefab.
Yeah, prefab. So all I had to do is bolt it on.
Because you're not a metal worker. You don't have...
I don't have a welder. And
Yeah, you don't have the time or energy to do all that.
right, cut the metal and the shape. So, I mean, I think that was probably about 25, 26 bucks.
Okay.
And then I just bought a handle for it.
Sure.
So I just had to drill a couple holes. And they make them if you're a welder and have that equipment, just a style that you can weld on. I got the bolt-on style.
Okay.
For my intake, I started looking at reviews, stuff like that, and it said have 3/4-inch holes. And then for the intake, like I said, I kind of went with some with the check valves that were sitting vertically to help with, really to help against wind, right? Because if I just have the holes in the side, you get the wind gusts blows in through one way, you can change your temperature. So if you have it where it's drawn on top, you shouldn't. The wind shouldn't affect it as much.
Sure.
So I'm like, you know what? I see people having issues or having to do more, drill another hole because they're not getting enough airflow. Got a 2-inch exhaust, 2 3/4. They say, hey, you want the same size inlet as you have outlet.
Sure.
So I go to the local Home Depot, and I'm just looking for piping. So it's just got like black steel or whatever. I went 1 inch. So, 90 degree, fitting to get it into the barrel. I think it's 24 inches. And then the shutoff valve. Now, shutoff valve was the most expensive part of it. Those were like $22 a piece.
Now, what kind of shutoff valves were they? Were they like water?
Quarter turn. Yeah, I mean, it could be used for water. I'm trying to think now what that aisle really was. I'm sure it could be used for some sort of gas also.
Plumbing, gas.
But plumbing, okay. Yeah, definitely would be. Just that quarter turn, ball valve.
Yep.
So, but yeah, that was the most expensive thing that I had to purchase because I had to get 2 of them.
Sure.
And then, a drill bit that would drill out a hole that big.
Yeah.
A little bigger than I had I think I had up to 1/2 inch.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's a bigger hole. You said 3/4 inch?
1 inch.
1 inch, okay.
1 inch.
Yeah.
So
you got your intake, your exhaust.
Right. So then I start drilling some holes.
Yep.
Right. So I get the holes drilled, and then I got to do my burn, right? Get that burn out anything that's on the inside, which I ended up doing 2. I had some firewood. So I think I had I think I lit a chimney of charcoal, some lump, some cowboy that I'm trying to get rid of because the pieces are pretty small.
Yeah.
And I was just dumping it in the bottom. I had some firewood, put that in there.
Okay. And you text me too. I was able to get you a pallet.
Well, that was burn number 2.
That was burn number 2.
So I let it burn. I'm rotating the lid because I don't want to cut off. I want it to be hot, but I want that lid to get hot also to burn anything off of that. So I have it like halfway off, and then I was just rotating it. I digital thermometer, check what kind of temp I'm getting just to make sure I'm burning it hot enough,
yeah.
and that the temperature is getting hot enough. So however many hours it was that I did that burn, go out. I'm like, let's clean it up.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of where I noticed where I was like, I don't know if it was hot enough. I think there may some anti-rust stuff on the inside.
Sure.
And I'm like, oh man, I don't.
So you need another burn. So that's when you message me.
That's like, hey, you can get a hold of pallets, right?
Yeah.
So then I got a full pallet. I cut it up, put it in there. Made sure to keep pieces long. So I wanted that flame to get as high as it could and as close to the walls as possible.
Right.
And then I was getting like 650. I want to say around the barrel.
Okay. And that's reading on the outside. So inside is probably, I don't know, who knows.
Right. I figured if on the outside, it should be. I mean, it's steel, so it should be pretty close. But either way, I feel good. We were 650. I'm never going to cook that hot.
Yeah.
Burn it off. So then it was, next prep, which I did decide to paint it. So I ordered high temp paint. Some of it was just grill paint.
Sure.
So now it's been a week or two, and it's just sitting outside. So we've gotten it hot. We've gotten rid of a lot of any protectants that are on it. So now I start dealing with
And
rust.
moisture and rust. Yeah. Yeah.
So-
and you live by the lake, so there's a lot of moisture in the air. Anyways.
So now I got to clean it up. Well, I knew I wanted to anyways, with soap and water. You know, I was wearing gloves. I didn't want any of my handprints on any oils from my hand on the metal itself. I go paint it, and then it doesn't adhere.
Right.
Well, now I have rust to deal with. So I mean, luckily I have a small air compressor and like I had like some of those the die grinder, the abrasive pads,
Yeah.
and then a drill because my little air compressor, it was running out pretty quick. So then it was just go and get it to where it was that nice bare metal, and then I washed it off and then started the painting process.
Okay. And the painting process was that paintbrush or spray paint?
I spray paint.
Okay.
That ended up being, I think it turned. I mean, time will tell. Because I didn't do, because from what I read, you didn't need to have like a primer. You know, this is grill paint. It's like a flat black. So I did flat black, or I didn't really realize it was flat black. I had gotten, I was like, hey, we're going to make this Shade Tree Chefs.
Yeah.
You know, so I found a green. I'm not an artist, so when you see it, I think it's still kind of neat, but it could be cooler. But Shade Tree Chefs, green, and then I got a clear to kind of clear coat it.
Clear coat for the final step.
The final step.
Yeah.
And it's 100 degrees. I have to do it in my garage. Right, so I have the doors open. I have fans on. I have no other choice, or I'm gonna die. Right, I'll end up dying.
Right.
And but I'm kind of back. I still finished cutting all the holes.
Yeah.
So yeah, my intake, my exhaust, I got those holes. I have the holes cut for my holes cut for the handle. So it's figuring out my racking. So
Sure.
There's many different ways of doing it. I ended up just having drilled 4 holes, you know, as evenly spaced as possible
Yeah.
to hold my racks on. So what I was going for was Firebox, which I also purchased that. They did show a way of making a Firebox, but you were buying a grate, and then you were buying expanded metal and some, you know, if you could weld, that was one way of welding it together. And I started looking at it, it's like I could buy one that's 12 by 12 for $22.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to spend how much just buying this expanded steel I'm going to have left over.
Sure.
So I just bought
You
one.
just bought it. Yeah. Certain parts like that, you want to buy the parts prefabbed.
Made it
Wait.
easier.
Yeah.
And now, in hindsight, there's other things. You know, I see people like little metal garbage cans. They drill holes, and then that's their ash catcher. They'll put, you know, a little grate and have it sitting above so that we have a couple of inches for that ash to fall.
Sure.
So it was like, all right, and I kind of went off of what that website had for the space. You know, I gave it a little bit more. I went 7 inches from the top of the barrel down.
Okay.
And then right underneath it, I did get 2 thermometers too. So right beneath that grate, I put the thermometer. I went 7 more inches for the second grate, and then the thermometer underneath. And then I want to say it was 6 inches below that for a diffuser plate,
Okay.
which I did buy a diffuser plate,
Sure.
which has been talked about in previous episodes.
Yeah.
And then for my charcoal holder, instead of it just sitting down on the barrel, or at the bottom of the barrel, and nowhere to really collect that ash, I just bought a 16-inch pizza pan.
Yeah.
And then some bolts and bolted that so it sat up off that a couple inches.
Okay.
And then painted it. So I did a few coats. This paint was just drying as quickly. Like, I'm pretty decent with spray paint. I've used it plenty.
Done it before, yeah.
And it's just drying as soon as it hits.
Yeah, because it is so hot. And like you said, you're doing it in your garage, which you said was almost 100 degrees outside.
Right.
Now you're talking inside the garage, it's probably well above 100.
Yeah, it was a long day because I mean I was at it for most of the day. So
Yeah.
I had bought some mechanics wire. No, I shouldn't say mechanics wire. They had wire at the hardware store because
Like
I'm like,
chicken wire or
no, it was just a roll of wire,
steel wire.
of steel wire, and I'm like,
Yeah.
well, the biggest issue I'm going to have is if I put my 12 by 12 my charcoal holder. That's reaching down quite a ways to get there. So
Sure.
I actually purchased it so I could make a handle-ish, I guess a handle. That way I can use a tool and just hook it and lift it up. Mm-hmm. So I make that, and I'm like, well, I'm gonna paint my intakes. I'm gonna paint because I want to paint everything before putting it together.
Right.
That way, you didn't have if something moved, you have the paint kind of adhered to both. We'll bolt everything on after paint. So how am I gonna do that? So I'm like, I'm gonna hang it. I got this big roll of this wire, so I just took my ladder, a step ladder, and then I took a broomstick, and I just wrapped the wire around there, hung it, and then it could go around and spray paint it.
Okay.
That worked out pretty decent.
Awesome.
So yeah, I got it all painted, and then I just used a high temp, like silicone, like RTV silicone. Mm-hmm. So like between my exhaust and the hole, I put a little bit on there just to seal it up.
To seal it. Okay, so something like a mechanic would use.
Yeah, and
Okay.
I ended up getting this, and honestly, it was a waste. I should just went to the auto store or whatnot. Got the orange high temp RTV. It's good enough. Now this is a smaller tube because it's for grill. Yeah, it's just that brand doing
Yeah.
it. Smaller tube, which I didn't need all that much, so that really didn't matter. So yeah, everywhere that even my bolts, I just used 1/4 bolts. I think they were 1.5 inches, and then a nut. So you need it threaded all the way.
Sure.
Went from the outside, pushed it in, then threaded the nut, or got it. So that was to hold my racks. And I've seen people doing adjustable racks, stuff like that, which is definitely cool. But as I was doing it, I said, Matt, stop spending money on this. Right? This was supposed to be something fun. Ugly barrel. There it is.
Yeah, here you are spending money on all these parts, and like you said, it's starting to add up very quickly.
And when I bought that intake, I'm sorry, the exhaust, I actually had, they sell some intakes that would be similar to what I ended up doing, except without the ball valves. Instead of like my exhaust, like I said, there'll be pictures, and it was like $90, and it's like it's in my cart, and I'm like, Matt, you're going too far.
Yeah.
So I ended up just making my own, which was a little bit cheaper, I guess. So yeah, I mean, that was pretty much it. I put it all together at that point. I was figuring out my height, where I wanted the racks.
Yeah.
And then the initial seasoning. So at that point, I soap and water. So I've done 2 burns on it. I get everything out I can. I soap and water the inside to try clean it all off to season it.
Yeah.
So then, I just took some like cooking spray, like an oil spray, and I sprayed down the inside of it, and then I just ran applewood, and I mean I did a full box
Chunks.
Yeah, chunks of applewood, not fully. I still use charcoal, so I still have my charcoal. I filled the whole 12 by 12 charcoal holder up, and I just let it burn for the 12 hours or 10 hours.
Yeah, so conveniently, the Weber 22-inch charcoal grates ended up fitting conveniently excellent for you, didn't they?
Yeah, great fit for it. Like I said, they had you use like an 1.5 inch 1/4 bolt. So I mean, it still leaves you, space along the outside. And actually, some of the builds that I've seen, people actually will go and find, off Marketplace or the side of the road, a 22-inch Weber grill top, and use that as their top of their ugly drum smoker instead of the top of a drum.
Oh, wow. Okay. So if your top ever falls apart, you can just go buy another.
You could just find
a
it.
lid.
Right. You wouldn't necessarily have to go find another drum lid. You could find an old Weber grill and just take the top of that.
Yeah.
And really that I think that would give you a little bit more space. And I'd have to look into it, but I would assume like getting accessories for like a 22-inch Smoky Mountain, or the racks to
The hangers.
the hangers.
Yeah.
Now that's something I didn't do that I was very interested in. I could have. It would be drilling a few holes and then being able to put like rebar through or whatnot, and then use that as a meat hanger and just make it where I can cap it off
Sure.
if I wasn't using it.
Yeah, maybe the next one you make, dedicated hanger.
Yeah, now that the build's all done, I mean, I think it looks good. I still have one last thing to do. My intakes, I don't have supports to support them up. So after I painted it, I put it all together. I'm going to do my initial burn. I pick it up, bring it outside. Nor do I have stands, some wheels or at least a stand. I'm just putting it on some bricks right
Sure.
now
Yeah.
to get it off the ground. So I had nothing. I'm like, I tighten the nuts up and I'm moving it, and the one intake just goes and starts falling.
Falling over because
So-
it's just an unsupported pipe.
Right, it's pipe with, and I forgot the name of the little nut to use. I have it on the inside. As much as I tighten it up, you can still grab it and move it. So I do have something to, but it's good. I'll just have to drill a couple holes. I didn't have the time for it. I had to get cooking on it the next day. So
Right.
something still to do. So in hindsight, I mean, I think it was a fun build. I've learned a lot from it. Like I said, and just on how to get rid of the paint off it. Just do get a pallet right away to do the burn. Another good idea that was brought up was using like some natural magnets. So
Oh, yeah.
it's that way you could have adjustable racks, which I think would be really cool as long as you could get them big enough, because you're looking even using the Weber racks or cooking grates.
Sure.
You still have some space. It'd have to be thick enough. I definitely think it would be strong enough. You get 4 of them on there.
Yeah.
And that give you a little more room. But with the 7 inches, I mean, I fit chicken on it. I fit pork shoulder with no issue for room.
Yeah, there's a lot of space on there, and that's a pretty cool project. And like you said, there's a lot of different ways you can do it. You can do the racks like you did. You can do 1 rack, 2 rack, hangers, a lot of different customization to it. And you painted it, and it looks pretty sweet, with the Shade Tree Chefs.
Yeah, I mean
logo.
the only issue with that is because it wasn't a clean environment. It's not the smoothest of paint,
But it's custom.
as long as it holds.
Right.
So if I were to do it again, though, I think I'd almost go more of what that website had. Like, I would just probably drill holes and use magnets.
Yeah.
Right, for my intake. Although I see people say, we just boil up some tinfoil. You start shoving it in there. Maybe a little less precise, and then having a magnet you can move off to the side.
Sure.
I wouldn't paint it. Looking through those groups, there's a guy who used like linseed oil. This was on a massive, like, big propane tank. He kind of cleaned it up and then just linseeded oil and then burnt it, and that's just kind of what's protected it from rusting out on them.
Yeah.
And it looked pretty cool. So, using like a magnet style, or magnets, even drilling the 8 holes in the top. I maybe take some big fender washers and 1/4-20 bolts where it drops down in there, and you can block off the holes.
Yeah.
And be a real ugly drum smoker, ugly barrel smoker.
Right.
Instead of something that's turned out into like you watching what you bang into it because you spent $80 on spray paint, high temp spray paint for it.
Exactly. No, I've seen it. I think it turned out awesome. You're going to post photos of it on Facebook, on social media, Instagram, and all that. So I look forward to that. And I look forward to you using it more and, fixing some of the things that you wanted to fix.
Right. Yeah, kind of tune it in. Like everything, it's a learning curve. Know what you can get for temp, what you want.
Yep.
And like I said, the first burn, when I seasoned it, I got 250. And I did the first burn. I had all my grates in, right? Those were all new. My diffuser plate, do it all with it in because they're still going to have cooking oils on them, and break it in. But like I said, then I dealt with issues of not getting to that temp. So it's learning the setup, and you don't want to be where you're on a time crunch and what you thought you could cook at, 275, 300. Now you're 25 degrees off. That's got a decent amount of time to your cook.
For sure. Awesome. Well, yeah, like I said, I look forward to that, and look forward to more. You have a whole summer now to play around with it and master it, and
Yeah, it's definitely it's a neat tool, and something different to try out and cook. Like I said, it fits. You can fit a lot of stuff on it, so
yeah.
hopefully no more big parties that I have to cater for. But if there is, I can do it.
More chicken. Room for
Yeah,
chicken
more
on there.
chicken. Yay.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, let's call it an episode. Again, find us on Facebook, Instagram,
YouTube.
YouTube.
What I'll probably do for this one is I didn't really take any video, but I took pictures
Lots of pictures.
through the steps.
Yeah.
So I'll probably line it up so that way as we're talking through this episode and we get to a certain point, I'll line up a picture of around where I was with it.
Sure.
And then you'll just stare at the picture and you can kind of see that progression from an painted barrel to being stripped and
Yep.
all that fun stuff.
Yep. Very cool. All right. Awesome. All right. Well, I'm Jamie,
And I'm Matt.
and we are
Shade Tree Chefs.